Hello, guys and gals, me Mutahar, and ladies and gentlemen, I was going to give $10,000 for you to find this image. I might just up it to $15,000. In fact, who cares? Let's actually go all the way. But today, it's not about throwing money at a search that really is the focus. It's about my interest for lost media content. I love lost media stuff, especially when it comes to things like video games. We've looked at stuff where, people have modded Silent Hill versions of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, once previously thought lost, finally resurfacing and completely playable. We've looked at entire images, like the backrooms, completely lost and forgotten at some point. But people have come together on the internet with their crazy internet detective skills and using all of the data available, found out exactly where that was. But there is one image that is so elusive. It is Jeff the Killer, JTK1 and JTK2. Now, the reason why this is so important to me is, obviously, I started my channel on video game creepypastas. Things like haunted gaming, where I would look at spooky stories on the internet pertaining to video games and just talk about them. Some guy gets his weird, spooky video game from Bootman Bill or leaves it in a garage for 20 years, comes back and finds out that a ghost has infected it. But then, of course, beyond just video gaming creepypastas, some of the most popular spooky internet stories was obviously Jeff the Killer. Now, if you're looking at this incredibly long piece, Jeff the Killer has been around for, I would say, probably most of the internet, okay? Most of just that early, mid-2000s internet, all the way to now, okay? Literally, if you go onto the internet, people still talk about it. People still share this image around. It is part of internet lore, and we can't ignore it. Now, obviously, if you ever read the original story, one of my first popular videos, I would say, really popular, was Jeff the Killer. I think I got 600,000 views just basically with video game footage of Dead Space and me just reading the story. Excerpt from a local newspaper. Ominous, unknown killer is still at large. After weeks of unexplained murders, the ominous, unknown killer is still on the rise. After little evidence has been found, a young boy states that he survived one of the killer's attacks and bravely tells his story. Now, of course, if you ever wonder why Jeff looks the way that he does, well, there's some actual explanation for it. And you can read it in the story for yourself, too. Jeff, what are you doing? Asked his mother. Jeff looked over to his mother. I couldn't keep smiling, Mommy. It hurt after a while. Now I can smile forever. Jeff's mother noticed his eyes ringed in black. Jeff, your eyes! His eyes were seemingly never closing. I couldn't see my face. I got tired and my eyes started to close. I burnt out the eyelids so I could forever see myself, my new face. Jeff's mother slowly started to back away, seeing that her son was going insane. What's wrong, Mommy? Aren't I beautiful? And of course, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, Jeff put them right to sleep. Now, of course, this is a pretty lengthy story, and you can read it for yourself, but the story is not so much the focal point for today's video. It's actually the actual search for the creepypasta. Now, a while back in the Lost Media Reddit, you could actually see that people were digging up, just constant archives from Japanese internet. Old Japanese internet that was thankfully, at least in some capacity, archived. And of course, as of 2 years ago, one of the first posts that I actually really saw in regards to the search of Jeff the Killer was obviously individuals linking this back to the investigation, which is where I found out about the JTK investigators that are actually still active to this day. So going into the old school internet and looking through image boards like this, especially for individuals that, for a lot of them aren't actually Japanese, has been kind of a tough endeavor. Mostly because internet that is this old, if you're looking at, again, dates as far back as 2007, people have been digging into old school Japanese internet and basically trying to find any form of actual file that exists. And day by day, those actual counts do go down. Day by day, the data is slowly being lost. In a lot of cases, going into, again, pages like Hyro, all right, old school Japanese forums, and basically finding all of these JPEGs and sifting through them one by one just to come across what could be the original image is where the search is effectively taken to. Now, for the amount of researchers that are basically looking into this image, they've employed PCA analysis, deep investigations of these JPEG files to see, all of the information that they could actually extract from that original creepypasta image that's floating around. And using programs like HTTRAC, where not only are they finding old school websites, but they're downloading them and archiving them even further as they search through this project. Now, despite all of this, there's been a lot of real stuff, all right, real leads rather, but there's also been a lot of stuff where people have just been mocking up or using artificial intelligence to generate fake images of Jeff the Killer, which is not only making the search more difficult, but it's also making the search nearly impossible the longer it goes on. Look, this is an internet cold case, and if it's one thing people got to know about cold cases, and in most cases, the longer things go without any actual tangible, address, the harder it's going to be to eventually, come to deal. This might be an image that, I'm not joking, will probably be lost forever, okay? And I think a lot of researchers are coming to terms with it. So of course, the original two images that people are looking at, these are the original two. So you've got JTK1, which is cute Jeff. Obviously, it's got a little bit of that Mr. Potato Head style going on. And then of course, the image we all know as JTK2. So to give you an idea, some of the older ones was obviously, this image of a toddler, where again, even a Discord user comes in and claims, yeah, I was like 3 back then in 2007, and it just had this photoshopped onto the JTK background, which obviously shut this down, even though it's a pretty good contender. And I remember when I first put out my bounty, a lot of people sent me this image, and I had to basically say, listen, guys, if it was this easy, I wouldn't just throw a bounty out there, okay? A 5-figure bounty. But of course, down the road, there was even more images, like this one. And this also caught my attention, but of course, obviously, the community was very quick to debunk it. And you can even see the fake image being spread as recently as 2022 on a forum known as 2chan. So of course, the further you go down, one of the leads was Katie Robinson, which was this character right over here, this person. And of course, that was also quickly debunked by the community. It was them in this original photo. And of course, this is a photoshopped mock-up, which again, the community has said that was debunked in my video. And obviously, you can clearly tell this is bullshit. And of course, the longer you go down, it just becomes more embarrassing because the amount of AI slop, the amount of photoshops and the amount of effort put into this has made trying to identify whoever Jeff the Killer really is that much more difficult. The more and more time goes on and the more people realize how they can just use AI to generate images, has made this become an impossible goose chase. I will say, I do like this image of Tommy Wiseau in this case. I think that's probably the best mock-up that I've seen so far. And again, even fellow content creators and friends blame it on Jorge, for instance, who does a lot of lost media stuff, even had to dig up deleted Reddit pages, deleted Reddit posts, debunking some popular photoshops that existed. Again, it's pretty clear to me that looking at this image, it's not the original in any capacity. And that's all I care about. I just want to see where one of the most infamous creepypasta images came from. And it's kind of sad that most of the stuff that I've seen is just created by the community as memes. Now, I said this bounty should probably go up, and I'm totally comfortable with putting more money down into it. Probably will just give somebody like 15K USD to try this, simply because I do just want to see where this goes down. But that money cannot be on the table if what I'm about to discuss is true. So one of the new things that have come out in the search is the possibility of this being from the capping community. Now, for anybody that doesn't know what the capping community is, get ready for some really spooky sides of the internet. So for instance, capping, of course, according to this Redditor, was actually coming up with the idea, right? I'm beginning to think the image may be a cap from a camgirl live site. It's entirely possible that the original image is of a lewd act, such as boobs flashing or revealing. Cappers are notorious for targeting minors and underage individuals, which may mean the original image is CP and could very well have been confiscated by the government. Now, if the original image is in fact this, there is an unfortunate possibility that it still could exist out there. And if that is the case, it makes me pretty hesitant to put up a bounty because ultimately I'm just paying for somebody to possibly find some form of CSAM material, which is not my goal, not my intention, not what I want at all. And of course, I can't stress that enough as I actually talk about it. But to give you an idea of what capping is, imagine if you were to go to sites like Omegle doesn't really exist, but there's a lot of sites where you can randomly chat with people on the internet. And unfortunately, a lot of these sites don't do a lot of effort in age verifying, anybody that is over the age of 18 or under the age of 18. There's a mixture of minors and adults. So typically an adult will just have a screen sharing application recording the browser where all of this conversation is taking place. And unfortunately, if you're a minor and you show off something nude on your body, or you do actually send something nude, this person has recorded it and they're unfortunately sharing it. Now, you might have remembered a girl known as Amanda Todd, an individual who died a long time ago. They committed like actual suicide. They were bullied. Actually, not just bullied, but they were blackmailed by basically having a topless photo of her, and they would leak it to their friends unless you would give the blackmailer a show. And this was not only so disgusting, but there was an entire channel on YouTube known as the Daily Capper, where again, they had this crudely animated anchor woman basically talking about the capping community and just promoting it out loud. YouTube, if you thought it was wild now, it was a lot fucking wilder back in the day, especially if content like this existed. And obviously, this channel doesn't exist anymore. There's great documentaries on it by Creepy Chronicles, Nick Crowley. Now, a lot of people have discussed that maybe this was a situation that was only happening in North America. But unfortunately, even further looks into this has shown that there are communities of this that exist in Japan, of places, right? Like this was happening internationally, maybe not to the same level, but these kind of disgusting freaks basically permeate every single kind of community, every single culture, every single place. So it's not outlandish to think that this couldn't happen in Japan. And if it did, ultimately this image, if it turns out to actually be CSAM, which would be an incredibly hard right turn, makes it effectively a search worth dropping. Now, obviously, as far as the legitimate legal research goes into it, the document is up to 43 pages at this point, with tons of image analysis of forums, and various other YouTubers that are still looking for this image as well. So for a lot of people that are looking into chance, for instance, they're actually looking at the way images are compressed. So for instance, depending on how images are processed, that leads people to believe that it might be on boards like Futaba or 4chan, simply because they're comparing it to other images and seeing just how images are processed. No website usually takes a raw image and just puts it up, usually to save server costs or, to save space. The image is, obviously compressed, processed, just so that you can minimize the amount of storage it takes up. Similar to how YouTube does it. Obviously, if I send YouTube a 10 gigabyte file of a video, that video then probably gets compressed down to a few hundred megabytes, maybe a gig, depending on which quality you're watching a video on, and just to save YouTube storage, capacity, and obviously to control bandwidth. Now, of course, one of the most popular unconfirmed theories right now is one of Mariko or Souza, where obviously this woman over here looks relatively similar, obviously, to Jeff the Killer. And of course, we've kind of discussed her story as well. Now, she was found through a user on the Discord searching for this known as Eat Raw Skin. Cute name. So of course, looking at this Mariko, for instance, right, they went down and it was intriguing because she was a net idol. She had an InfoSeek page, and unfortunately, she had a lot of bullying. And of course, she had a boyfriend, Suza Kumaru. Now, Souza used to promote the site all around the internet. And of course, it turns out that their relationship was pretty unstable. And of course, Souza posted pictures of Mariko, and it's not clear whether she even consented to having her image out there in the first place, which adds another layer of problematic behavior to searching for this image, right? If you're ignoring all the capping stuff, which you shouldn't because of, again, how sensitive that stuff is, just a woman that's even of age, if she's not consenting to her stuff out there, it kind of feels a little shitty to go down the road and, dig up an image, right? Usually you want this kind of stuff to be lighthearted, but it seems like some of the theories involved in this entire story come from places that, obviously, if consent's not there, I think the search it's kind of a tough ethical thing to go down, but that's just me. So you've got other characters like Haduri, for instance, you've got Nachi, you've got Kogedombo, you've got a bunch of characters that are actually unconfirmed rumors into this, right? But for every unconfirmed rumor, there's a lot of debunked rumors as well too, like the Katie Robinson rumor that actually came out pretty early. Katie Robinson, obviously from the chat log we read earlier, is actually an individual known as Heather White, who was even interviewed by a user researching and confirmed that her story was fake. Now, of course, in this entire process too, as I even went out here 2 years ago, one of the chief investigators, Juventhal, was actually just downloading 53 gigabytes of images, at least off of like the Wayback Machine, based on what it is. Bonus points, by the way, for that sick Linux Mint usage. And of course, the download and search doesn't end over here. Tons of automated tools, the actual like proper investigatory work or archival work has been going on into the story, where again, Juventhal, God bless, has been putting every bit of effort into preserving as much, and just to have the ability for the researchers to look through. And if you're wondering how dead is this, it's actually not. The researching behind this is actually pretty active. People are not only researching for Jeff the Killer, but they're coming across other images, like this one, for instance, from the old school early 2000s Japanese internet, that actually had me a little bit freaked out. I want to know the origin of this image even too. But these guys are active. They're looking for an image that probably will be long lost to time. And sometimes I wonder what will happen even after this image kind of comes out. You know what I mean? Like, what next in the search for obscure internet creepypastas? But where it's making the search even harder too, not just beyond some of the theories which may lead to this image possibly being illegal, is also the efforts of the archival community. For instance, a lot of amazing tools used for this. One of the best resources has been the Wayback Machine, has been the Internet Archive. And unfortunately, other big platforms like Reddit, for instance, is now deciding to block the Internet Archive. In fact, it's actually becoming pretty scary on how archival of the internet is becoming, simply because of the advent of AI and a lot of these companies withholding their information, social media platforms like Reddit, just so they can keep their training data so they can sell to other parties. Ultimately, it makes archival so much more difficult, and for a search that already has us going so far back into a time when the Internet Archive wasn't even considered, this is making the search dramatically more difficult. Arguably, I think, if this actually comes to fruition and we do find the origin point of this image, hopefully not from that capping community like I discussed earlier, and hopefully not not a non-consensual image that was posted, I think it'll break the internet easily. This might be bigger, in my opinion, than fucking the back rooms or really anything. I mean, this is one of the OG creepypasta images. And ultimately, I want this shit to be found. And I want it found first and foremost on the best of intentions. Because ultimately, it's just been something that's been in my head for years now. For a long time, okay? Arguably, I don't care so much about the Jeff the Killer story. It's kind of cringe. I do care about where the fuck the image came from. It almost feels like every form of media attached to a creepypasta has been found or seen, but not Jeff the Killer. So ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I want to say that I'm losing some hope, but I don't know. I think deep down it will be found. I think deep down this search may end up coming to nothing. And let's say it doesn't. I'd say for a few years, I think it definitely built a community of friends that will be around for a long time, especially in the search investigation community. And maybe their efforts could even be put towards other spooky avenues that frankly have a bit more, maybe they're just not as cold as this. Anyways, that said, if you like what you saw, like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it, I am out.